might think, I've got this question covered, but that confidence could cost you the job. The way you answer, tell me about yourself, might seem simple, but get it wrong, and many do, and you've already lost the battle. Stick around until the end because we're revealing the number one mistake that makes hiring managers silently cross candidates off their list before the interview even begins. What's the real reason? Not just small talk, it's a subtle test. Now, consider this. What is the interviewer really attempting to achieve by asking you this seemingly innocuous question? He or she appears to be throwing you a softball, one that you can answer easily, and hopefully, at least for the interviewer, one that will put you at ease and allow you to lower your guard. When you feel comfortable, you're more likely to overshare. And that is not a good situation here. So let's talk about some steps that you can take to make sure you answer this correctly to your benefit, not to theirs. Step number one, put the brakes on the personal stuff. Remember, this is not the time to talk about your personal life. This is not an invitation to share your life story. The hard truth, the interviewer isn't here to hear your life story. They're assessing if you will fit in with the team. So resist the temptation to pull out your wallet and start sharing pictures of your children, no matter how adorable they are. Also, and with a passion, think twice about mentioning time-intensive hobbies. If you run 50 miles a week, the interviewer might worry about early departures and late arrivals. So you ask. If you can't talk about personal stuff, what are you supposed to talk about? Step number two, get off on the right foot. What do I mean by that? Start with your professional experience and how it is relevant to the job that they are trying to fill. This is your golden opportunity to sell yourself, to attempt to steer the interviewers towards your strengths rather than your weaknesses. Give a succinct review of your experience and any relevant certifications, if that was requested in the job description, as it relates to the position. Try and position yourself in terms of what's in it for them, not what's in it for you. Remember to review the job posting before you go in, and if at all possible, highlight how you will be able to meet their requirements. By the way, this is also your opportunity to introduce any special skill you have that they didn't mention in the job posting that you think might be useful and might differentiate you from other candidates. Not stuff that you want to mention that you like to do, but stuff that will help them. You are interviewing with a French company, for example, and you're fluent in French. This might be the time to mention it, but make sure you can deliver, because the person interviewing you may, for example, in this example, start speaking in French, and you better be able to respond in French if you've just announced that you're fluent in it. In this ideal situation, your response will leave them feeling that you are the absolute best candidate for the position. Now, if you're wondering if you can create one response to this question and use it anytime you're interested, sadly, the answer is no. Step number three. This is not a one-size-fits-all situation. Let me explain. Know your audience and tailor your response. Remember, I told you to go over the job posting before. And also realize where you are in the interview process. If you are going through the first interview, possibly with someone from HR who's doing the initial screening, you might want to have a different and definitely less technical response than if you're having a second or third interview with the person you're reporting to. In the first instance, you might want to talk more in generalities, and in the latter, it might be fine to dive down into the technical details. So, for example, in the first case, you might mention you've done 1099s and leave it at that. But in the latter, if you're doing 1099s, you might want to discuss the differences between doing 1099s and 1099 NECs. But again, only if that's part of the job. This leads to the obvious question. In the latter case, is it okay to go on at great length to talk about whatever it is in great length? Step number 4. Keep it short and sweet. It is never okay to ramble. Avoid that at all costs. It's also never okay to be boring if you can possibly avoid it. I know none of us want to be boring, but just keep that in mind, especially if you have a tendency to ramble. So keep the answer to this question, like every other question, short and succinct, but include enough details to highlight why you are the best candidate and also that you understand the issue. Now, I realize this might be a little counterintuitive, as you might rightly think you'll come across better in the interview if you relax, but be careful. Step number 5. Yes, relax a little bit, but you never want to relax so much that you're not carefully weighing every word that comes out of your mouth during the interview. Relaxing too much can lead to you sharing more than you should. This leads some to think that they should memorize the response. Should you? Step number 6. Avoid sounding like a robot, which can happen if you memorize your responses. So no, don't memorize. For starters, it will sound canned. A better strategy is to map the answer out ahead of time, but just in bullet points. The odds of being asked are high, so prepare, realizing you'll probably have to adapt to each situation. One way to structure the answer, and one that is recommended by quite a few HR experts, is to talk about the past, the present, and the future. So for example, you might say something like, I've worked in accounting for the last 10 years. For the last 3 years, I've been the accounts payable manager for ABC Company, where I managed a staff of 7. In addition to the typical accounts payable functions, I also did some analytical work to support the purchasing staff. Moving forward, I hope to expand this experience and the width that you want to use here is to make sure something that they said and make sure that what you say for the future matches the job that they are looking for, okay? You may be wondering if there's anything else you should avoid. But before we get to those other potential interview minefields, if you're finding value from this talk, please hit the like button, and if given the opportunity, hype it as well. Now on to step number 7, those other issues to avoid. As we've mentioned earlier, this is not an invitation to tell your life story. Do not overwhelm the interviewer with irrelevant information or stories that have little or no relevance to the job, other than you won't get invited back. Never speak poorly of anyone, especially former bosses, and don't use this as an opportunity to explain a flaw in your past. This flaw could be you don't have the right type of experience in one of the areas, you're missing a key skill they are looking for, or you had an unfortunate breakup with the former employee. If they're going to find it, let them find it and ask. You don't have to help them in this regard. Remember, you never get a second chance to make a good first impression. And since this is usually one of the first questions asked, tell me about yourself, it is a golden opportunity to put yourself in serious contention for the job. This is a really, really important, which is why we put together a talk on making awesome first impressions in all sorts of business encounters, including job interviews. You should watch it right now using the link that has appeared on your YouTube screen and is in the description. Good luck.